Hello, everybody. Welcome to Gov School on YouTube Live, and we'll be starting our session in just a minute. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start welcoming you here to Gov School for this afternoon. We're going to do some training on how to deal with the RFP in 2026 and all the new things that are happening. And I'm going to walk you through that process today. We'd like to give everybody just a few minutes to get into the room. We're also live on YouTube. And we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Okay, about 2 more minutes here. If you are on YouTube Live, just know that you can ask us questions in the chat box. We'll get to those questions just below there. Make sure you subscribe, of course. But we'll get to those questions after the session. We will be live in this room here. When you first come into the room, you're on a mute status. You can unmute yourself, but just know for privacy reasons that it is recorded and it is live on YouTube. At the very end of the session, we'll terminate the live session that's on YouTube, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask us some questions. I'd like to get started at 2 minutes after the hour. That just gives everybody an opportunity to get into the room. So we appreciate your bearing with us. Okay. Since this is a recorded version, it will be available immediately following the session. We will decline any sort of any requests to record. Okay, if it's added here. Give everybody just a few more minutes, letting everybody in. If you're knocked out of the room, just click back on. You should be able to get right back into the room. Still have a good crowd coming in. So let's just give everybody just a couple more minutes to make sure they have the opportunity to join us today. Hope everybody's enjoying this good spring day. We're here. I'm based in here in Atlanta. It's actually a very nice day. We've had huge problem with pollens the last couple weeks, been something else. And but I don't seem to have any issues today. So, but if I do start coughing, just forgive me. It's the pollen's everywhere. So here we are, and I want to welcome you here to Gov School. Gov School is a service of GovDirections.com. We've since the about, I believe, 2012, was when we first started a Gov School operation, where we've gone from the stage of finding the bid, which we do very well to help you locate those bids, to the next phase, which is to actually win the government contracts. And our Gov School product is a process to help teach you to do that. We really like to have an interest in education and making sure that you have the knowledge level is necessary to move from the stage of identifying opportunities to the final win stage. And so our Gov School classes are designed in that effort. One of the very first issues I've always deal with whenever I'm working with our clients and the question I get is really, what is an RFP? And so today I'm gonna take a little twist on that. I'm gonna say we all know potentially what an RFP is. If not, I'm gonna help you with that process. But now, what has it become in 2026? It's just the entire process itself sort of been thrown up everybody is in a rush to get to using AI, artificial intelligence. Either you may be using the Chat GPT product, potentially Claude and Gemini, or even Grok. All these methods have been thrown at us to allow us to respond back to a government contract opportunity in a quick way. And oftentimes that can harm you. And so I'm of the opinion that maybe we need to slow down just a little bit. I'm a big fan of AI tools, and I use them daily now. Yeah, it's amazing how much it's helped us improve our productivity. But government itself is incremental in nature, and that meaning that things that don't really move as quickly as you want them to move. And there's a lot of forms and a lot of methods. And I don't know if even if you noticed that a lot of the bids that you're still responding to are still require you to use more snail mail. We basically hand deliver the actual bid to the city hall or the county, and that's important to understand. That process may not marry itself very well with the AI tools that are out there. So with that said, I have a slide here that I'm going to walk through to kind of help you understand what it is that you're actually are working with when you first come into this space. As I mentioned earlier, one of the first questions I get is, "What is an RFP, Mark?" I always like to start off just quickly about my own personal background. And with that said, my LinkedIn profile is there. It'll be available for you afterwards. But essentially, my background is in the field of, as well as in government contracting. I've been in the space over 30 years, but I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of my alma mater, University of Georgia, where I teach future contracting writers how to actually write the RFPs and bids that you respond to. And so that is something I've always had an interest in. And so one day I basically said, what if I just took that and reversed it and sort of started teaching our members, what it is they're actually, what the governments are actually looking for, and pull back and sort of reverse the process. And so this slideshow that I have is really built on that model to kind of help you understand really what a government contracting officer is looking for from you whenever you are responding to them. So the first thing you do is you pick up on one of those RFPs, and I believe in an experiential process of learning, so you can come in and learn very quickly by actually seeing and doing uh, bids. And so I always encourage folks to come in and maybe find the bid. So here's one for a carbon media replacement. This kind of pops up, and actually take the bid and look at the bid and see what it is that the government is actually seeking from you. And when you do that, I want you to understand really what they're where to focus in at. Okay. And so this document, the next few minutes, what I'm going to do with you is a breakdown, a live RFP, a request for proposal, and help you understand the parts of that. And folks are still coming in the room. So as you do come in the room, we're just getting started. This is a live recorded version. It'll be available to you immediately after. You can catch up if you have to step out of this 1 hour. We'll be together probably about 45 minutes. If you have to step out, it will be available to you a little bit later. Okay, it'll be live on YouTube. But Gov is a function of Gov School, and we have multiple videos. The whole concept of learning to do things yourself. Our YouTube videos are available to you, hundreds of hours of videos to help you really, learn how to fish. That's where I go to learn how to tie that fly knot, or just to go in there. The other day, my wife's actually walking the Camino de Santiago in Spain right now, and so I'm having to cook for myself in a long time. I haven't done that in a while, so I had to go to YouTube, look up to how to do some things. Same thing with government contracting. Go there, you can watch the videos and understand all the parts of it. And as you're getting into it, just understand that, we like to use some quotes that are out there, but being a little scared, being a little hesitant is fine. Okay. But the staying that way is the problem. So you got to actually seize the day and go in there and really learn from the information, learn from the videos, and then move forward and actually taking a bid or taking a proposal, submitting a response. And I think that's always important in that experiential learning process. But you have to start somewhere. Governments understand that, and they encourage that. And you'll see a lot of programs that are available for SBE, small business enterprises, because they understand maybe don't have the resources that are there to really get out there and play with the big guys. You got to understand that process. But luckily, for all of us, AI has really leveled the playing field and put in front of you tools that you can use to really make yourself more professional, more productive in the process. Now, today, what we're doing is we're going to walk through and I'm going to help you identify the structure of a request for proposal, because you really do need to understand what you're working with before you attack something with AI. And I think one of the problems I see, even with some of my students, is they'll just basically go in and say, do an analysis of this bid and not give it any instructions. And potentially that can harm you and in the process, and not even uh, being able to go actually dissect the actual bid or break it down in a way that you can understand that what you're reading from the tool is really factually correct. because a lot of times you can find yourself in a ghosting situation or potentially information that's not quite what you need to be. So you got to be careful about that. So it's important you have that foundation in place before you use some of these additional tools. And that's always been the case. So everything that I share with you today, I've been practicing for some 30 years. Okay, so this isn't something new. It's just that some of the tools that I use now speed up the process a little bit and help me with that. And I would encourage you to approach it that way, and you will find yourself I think in a better position as a business owner. I'm going to walk you through the sections that you really need to pay attention to, and even whenever you're instructing your tools that you may actually use, how to actually break something down. And as you know, training your modules that you build and training the systems that you use is very important in making them productive for you. And so what I do is when I work with these tools, I basically encourage it to look through these variety of these sections and then give me information within each section as opposed to just the whole gamut at once. And I'm going to actually take an actual RFP and help you and identify the sections that you will want to use. And I say this taming the dragon because it really is, that's something that it's going in there and you got to tame it and make sure it's a tool that you can use. And I'm going to actually point out even the tools that we have within our organization. We have something we refer to as Eagle Eye because our motto is an eagle, a logo, and I'm going to show you how you can use that tool. But know that you can use any tool that you currently have that you might be potentially tapping into, using Claude, using ChatGPT, some of the other methods, and everything that I show you today will allow you to pull those tools into the process of responding to these bids. So this is what we're going to do today in the next 30 minutes. And those who have come into the meeting, this is recorded live on YouTube, and I'm going to have it available immediately after the session. You can just go point and click and see that. And as we're going through this today, I'm going to try to make it a little easier for us to understand. I'm going to use a terminology of a request for proposal, RFP. Okay. Generically, governments use a lot of different contracting instruments. The request for information, for example, they want to know something about you. Okay. They want to know if you have a source, sometimes referred to as source of salt or qualifications that you might have. Okay. Documents where essentially they're there in order to gather information about a marketplace that may or may not exist. An invitation to quote, where they actually know exactly what they want. They just want you to give them a price. Sometimes it's just done by a phone, and the importance of the DSPS profile and the importance of actually coming in and seeing other like you, not only like your DSPS, but making sure you have your capability statement ready to go in that process. And then, of course, you have invitation to bid, request for bids, where, a little bit more elaborate than solicitation, combined synopsis solicitation, where you have a streamlined acquisition process where the information is there, readily available to you, very detailed, but a little bit more expansive than a traditional invitation to quote. And then you have sort of my favorite, which is the request for proposal, which you might ask, why is that Mark's favorite? Well, this what kind of lets you shine a little bit, okay? Because it really taps into your subject matter expertise. All of these contracted instruments are built on the whole concept of the theory of the firm. And essentially, you have something that the government wants to procure. They need a service, they need a supply, they need something that you are able to provide to them. And this is what they do is they build these instruments to allow that to be done in an organized way. Okay. And please maintain your mute status unless you have a question, and you can pop that into the chat box, and I will be able to I'll go back and forth to these in a few minutes and answer the questions there. Okay. As a reminder, as you're coming into the room, this is a recorded video, and I'll put the slides within the YouTube video section on YouTube so you can have access to the slides as well. Okay. And we have a book that's written specifically in this area that you can use. It's in the Amazon. It's called the RFP. But these are the contracting instruments that are built for you to allow the government to treat everybody the same, and in the process, and making sure you're alerted in the way. And so when you go to SAM.gov, that's the federal larger than 25,000, or individual local governments or individual state agencies, when the states are there, where they'll have their own systems, they'll have their own methods in place to actually allow them to do that. Okay. I'm sorry, I'll continue to place on mute. That's very important that we have everyone on mute during this presentation to allow everybody to enjoy the information. Okay. As everybody still comes in the room. It's a busy day today. Okay. And so with that said, I have the traditional definition of what is an RFP. Okay. Because I like to actually call attention to some of the rumors I always hear or some concerns I have. One of that from ones that I hear from folks routinely is that isn't this a done deal? Isn't what I'm looking at already, haven't they already decided who they're going to work with? And I'm just going to waste my time. No. Okay. Believe me, governments have a lot of different mechanisms to use if they're going to have a sole source or some sort of justification of a product acquisition. There's reasons why governments need to do that. And they have these methods. FAR allows that. Federal acquisition regulations, state rules allow that. Local government procurement methods allow that. They can just go before city council, make that decision. And so why would they go through the elaborate process, sometimes years in the making, okay, to build this RFP, oftentimes multiple pages long. Believe me, they're not using AI tools. They're going through and they're having team meetings and pulling together individuals who are actively involved in the preparation of those documents and to make sure they're correct and having a whole elaborate process of allowing you time to request more information about it or ask questions and then to allow you to build a response. So the governments take that seriously. So it is a solicitation. Okay. It's made through a bidding process, meaning you're competing with others against in that process because they want the best. Okay? They want to get the best price or the best product or the best combination of product and price. And so they take it seriously. And it's done by, when I use the terminology of the agency or company who's interested in buying something from you, that means basically it's a professional organization looking to acquire from another professional organization some sort of asset or service that they need. That there's multiple suppliers who potentially are going to respond. And so when you do that, you need to submit a business proposal back that's done in a professional way. So the first thing I'm going to tell you, when you use some of these AI tools and they produce these quick responses back to you in for a response to a bid or proposal, I would say that 9 times out of 10, they're not in the method that the government is seeking to receive the information from you, and you almost right away you're deemed non-responsive. And non-responsive means I like you, but I can't use your bid because you did something wrong. Okay, and you may never know that. You're just put into over here to the side where in that non-responsive folder, and everybody else gets to play the game. And you're not at the game. You're not at the table. So it's important that you build that proposal exactly the method in using the method that the government shows to you. And so whenever you open up an RFP and you open up an invitation to bid or request for information, you're going to find there's some common themes to it. There's going to be common parts. Okay. The first is the statement of work, the most important part. Okay. This is the part where the government tells you what they're seeking to accomplish. What is the goal? And I always kid around and I say to everyone, when you read that, it's going to be maybe a paragraph or two. When you read that, you need to hear that song playing in the back of your head. You're the one that I wanted to find. And in fact, I have a lot of tools when I build my bid review, my bid analysis of the RFPs I respond to or help my clients respond to. If you get 90 or above in my point scale, I'll show you how it works in a minute. It starts singing that song. I have it built. So we have a little fun with these things. And comes back with the message. You're the one I wanted to find. And because if it doesn't say that to you, maybe it can be a little bit less than that that confidence level. But if it doesn't say that to you, it's not the right bid. Move on. Find another one. It's going to be an $8 trillion marketplace here soon. It's a huge marketplace. There's plenty of opportunity. We have never experienced a spending spree like we're seeing in the last few years and coming in the next year. You see that budgets at the local, state, and federal level, they're continue to increase at a significant pace, 5-8%. It is a large spending period for American governments who are seeking your access to the marketplace. And so know that you will find a bid. So don't rush it. But the first one is that statement of work. Okay. Once you move past that, okay, is that needs to sing that song, but the rest of it can be a good high degree of match. And so I actually build what I recall indicators of success, an iOS analysis. And I basically go in and I rank everything as a part of this. So the technical specs, one of the items that I take a look at, and it needs to match what I'm doing in my own business to a high degree, and I give it points. And so the tools that are out there, they'll allow you to do this in an organized way. So I'll say I use chat GPT, and I say, here's the bid that I'm looking at. It's over 100 pages. I don't have time to do this right now. Go through and look at the technical specs and tell me what degree it matches me. And this is specifically what I'm looking for in those technical specs. You need a high degree of match. I'd say on this here, instead of 100% or 90%, you really probably look about 70%. And while you always want to get 100%, of course, not believe me, students in my class always would have, Mr. Knowles, how do you get an A in your class? That's all they're worried about. But not everybody's going to get it. They just can't get it because they can't make it to class all the time. They don't have this particular skill set just yet, things like that. So there's always going to be a little breakdown there, but you don't walk away from the bid simply because you don't get a perfect match on technical specs. Okay. What you do then is you try to figure out a solution for that. Get the notes from somebody else, get somebody else at the table, things like that. Okay, then you got a schedule that you're looking at. The schedule is very important because this is where you start looking at actually your profit centers and how fast you're going to move and how you can actually make sure you can actually accommodate the projects that I work with. And I'll just tell you, my own personal consulting, I've won about 400 projects and about 34 states now. And what I do is organizational management and staffing analysis, and also procurement. Basically, how do you pay people? How do you pay firefighters? Things like this. And so I've done those kind of projects, and the schedule that takes a little bit of time. Ideally, I can get 4 to 6 months. That makes it a little simple for me, easier, and I can organize in the right way. But I'm in there and out in 6 months. Sometimes though, they might be doing, for example, they might be negotiating pay with a union or something like this. So I got a compressed schedule, 2 months. It's not that I can't get it done, but it actually requires a lot more work for me up front and moving quickly. So my price goes up. Okay. And so that will help determine how I'm going to price the schedule. But know that you're going to have how you're going to accommodate the work process itself. That's one part of the schedule. The other part of the schedule is, what's your timeline like? Get the bid here. It's going to be due back in 3 weeks, and you got maybe a week to ask questions. And so keeping on that timeline schedule on how you're actually going to respond to the actual bid. So that's two parts of schedules within an RFP. But both of those will play to how you respond. Always knowing that the basic business rule of work expands to fill the time available for its completion always plays with any contract that you're working with. I don't care if it's government or if it's just business, private business, going back and forth. And then you want to look at the list of deliverables. List of deliverables, once again, to me, it means how I'm going to get paid. Okay. And so the money starts coming in. Okay. Usually I do a 30, 30, 30, or at the end, it actually evens out. So it's 40, but 30, 30, 30% up front, 30% in the middle, delivery of a due date, delivery of final report, whatever it is, that's the deliverables. It's tied to almost always to your compensation. So if you got a drop ship thing, a product of some sort, I'm dealing with a client right now doing a demolition project, and the demolition, we just finished 25%, so he can bill at a certain level. So this is important, and this is actually, once again, how you're going to make sure you're in a profitable situation. But nothing determines profit like contract terms and conditions. Okay, that's your profit right there. So you got to make sure you pay attention to what those terms and conditions are, because if you forget something, you miss something, then that can actually really hit your bottom line. And go back to when everybody got, all of a sudden, the world was pulled up under us with COVID, and if you didn't have processes in place to allow you to get out of some contracts, a lot of us got burned with that, and it cost us some lost revenue, and you don't want to have that happen. So understand those terms and conditions of every contract when you go into it, and make sure you're protected. And even now, we've been faced with, once again, high inflationary rates. And moving very, folks who are dealing with, for example, transporting and gas and fuel, diesel, it's significantly higher all of a sudden. So they got to somehow accommodate for that. That's where your terms and conditions come into place. Your format of proposal. This is, I think, a lot of times where some of the AI tools really break down. So, and you have to remind the tool, they can't just develop a traditional response that you might see in a business to business transaction. You got to really follow the rules for the government. And most times they will want some sort of, executive summary, and they're going to want to know your certifications, and they're going to want to know you're going to basically go in and make your assertions in your FAR report and so forth. And you got to have all that done in an exact way. You don't want to sit back and give every government the same format back to them the way you do it. You got to accommodate their methods, and so they'll tell you what they do. A lot of times it's making sure it's a 12 font, very specific. And your margins and so forth. It can be very specific, but understand they're going to tell you what they want, and you got to make sure you follow that. And when you train that dragon, you got to make sure you say, make sure we stay in to do this process in this particular way. And then your qualifications and experience. This, of course, qualifications could be for you as an individual and your experience as an individual, or as for your business. And sometimes we come in and we were given certifications of some sort, such as a small business enterprise, maybe a minority business enterprise, a woman-owned small business, veteran-owned small business, service disabled, veteran-owned small business. There's all kinds of different certifications we can have. That's where our qualifications and experience come in. And not only that, another question I get, probably the first question I get is, what is an RFP? The second question is, I don't have any experience. How am I going to get past that reference section, the reference requirements? And I just always go back to the fact that, you're a business owner, and you've started a business, you got some experience, you just don't know how to potentially sell yourself. And so you got to step back and understand how you're going to sell yourself in the right way. Practice, practice, practice on those references, and making sure you have your qualifications ready to go and your experience is ready to go in a storytelling way, not in just a point by point section. And one of the other things I always see over and over again, it's like when I see the responses back that are driven by AI, it's always dot 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 dot. And one of the things I always do is instruct and say, please don't use well, I don't even know sure what we call these things at this point in time with the dots, but go in there and do a narrative explanation of what we actually are doing. Now, communication and how you communicate yourself is really important and should tailor and look and feel like you and your company and way you would generally do it, as opposed to this one size fits all that we typically find with the AI responses. And if you've been doing those, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, if you're not, be careful about that. You want to make sure it's done in the right way. Having those with the lines, basically a horizontal line, and you have the bullets. Bullets is what I was looking for. You don't want to have that constantly. It's not. That's not a proposal. That's a summary of what you potentially can do. You need to be able to drive into it. Costing is really, really important. And that's one of the best things I do like about using AI tools, because it allows you to really go in and take a lot of data and analyze it in the right way. We have some 7 million records at our at GovDirection. We had about 50,000. At any time, we have about 50,000 active bids. We had about 5,000 new bids and proposals every day. We collect award information. So our team has access to a lot of data, and we can go in and almost tell you specifically what you have to bid in order to make a win. In fact, we change the models that I work with and the customers that I work with. I actually have each one of them broke down the specific way, so we can tell them, here is where a win's at. Here's where you want to take a little risk. Here's where you have to be at in order to nail the deal, if you really want to nail the deal. And so you play that and you break that down in a lot of different ways, but keep that information over time and understand how to cost out your business. But always, always, always remember that you're in this business to make a profit. Don't go in and do something that's not going to allow you to make a profit. Governments are not looking for things to be cheap. That is not what they're looking for. They want something that's cost effective. They want to make sure that you can get the job done. And believe me, I'd say one of the things I always tell my clients is that they're willing to pay you a little bit more money if they know they can get the job done in a timely way, in the right way. Because the last thing that a contracting officer wants to has to justify, now they can justify pricing any day of the week. What they can't justify is a failed transaction. And if they basically say, this is the right company and I'm ready to go with them because it gave me a good price, and then you don't get the job done and you have to walk away from it, or you fail, that's a stain on their reputation. Now, it's always a stain on yours too, but it's really a stain on the contracting officer. So it's a very important to them they get that right. So costing is important. And in fact, I do see, especially when we're looking at maybe IDIQs and some of these others that are indefinite in how they approach things, because that's a pricing strategy and how you do that and how you win. Because the likelihood of you getting all of that is not quite there. And a lot of times those formulas kind of scream that's going to be all this money. So sometimes it's a practice where you might want to strategically go in at a lower price for those, and then you will actually win and make more money at the end of the day. So you have to come to understand that and know how you approach every sector just a little bit differently. Local governments, state government, local governments almost dollar for dollar exactly what you bid you get. State governments a little bit less, federal governments a lot less potentially. So you have to understand that when you're bidding. And then of course the final part of any RFP is, and this is the really kind of gets me why so many people miss this part too. The evaluation criteria. The government's going to tell you how they're going to measure you. And you'll see a lot of times, especially AI, will actually put in a lot of extra information. Government can't consider it. They have told you exactly how they compare you against everyone else. And your job is to give them that information back so that they can evaluate that in a fair way. The extra things they have to sort of discount. That's why you often see page limits, things of this nature, or and sometimes even say we can only talk about this particular part. That's all we need to know, and then we can discuss the other parts of it later on. So know the evaluation criteria go in, and for goodness sakes, go ahead and evaluate every single RFP that you write. Chat's going to do a lot better job than most government reviewers. There's no school of reviewing usually. I have a class that I teach in graduate school, but not a lot of people go through that, believe me. But and we try to say, how do you focus in on evaluation? But that's very rare. It's usually they'll go into an organization, they'll pull out 5 people at random and say, hey, evaluate this criteria. And the evaluations are almost always very rudimentary and basic. So any evaluation you get using an AI tool is going to be very helpful to you. So go in there and say, listen, I want, and to be very instructional to that dragon and say, tell me how I get 100 on this scale. It's very rare you can get 100 using an AI tool, but tell me how I can get to it. And it will tell you a breakdown using that evaluation criteria, it'll give you a score, and then you move through that. But understand what that is when you're going into it. Okay. And just remember that the statement of work is really, really, really the part you need to focus on first. And I would read that before I even introduced it to an AI tool and say, when you go in and actually want it to be analyzed in some way, I say, I've already determined this is the one I wanted to find, and prove it. Okay. And go in there and do the job. Tell me all this other information, because you really do want to work with just the ones that are perfect for you and then move on to the others. Now, I keep talking about indicators of success. It's kind of corny, but I've been doing this for decades. It's just that you can use tools now, and it allows it to be a lot more efficient in how it's done. Used to, it would take me about 5 or 6 hours to kind of go through and measure the method, basically the match to me, and I would do it individually on a spreadsheet. I've been doing it long enough where we had Lotus 1, 2, 3. I start aging myself. So you got it there, and you can score it out. But now I actually just drop in the bit. I've got my model built in such a way that it'll do all the work for me while I can go do something else. And that will come back with a good score, and it'll tell me which ones. What I really look at mostly is the ones I don't want to work with. Okay, but if it's telling me that I do want to work with it, if it's a high go, if it's perfect, you're the one I wanted to find, then I pay a lot more. Excuse me. I pay a lot more attention to it. Um, Whenever you do your indicators of success, okay, essentially I always say take a minimum of 10 items, okay, that are 10 indicators that you're looking for in any single bid or RFP that you would consider a good match to you. Okay, that's basically what it is. Now, I've grown mine over time, and you should too. You should always transform to make them different over a period of time based on what your your current desires are of your business and your business plan. For example, when I first started, I was a young chat and I had to feed a family and I would do anything basically. So I didn't really care. I was like, as long as it puts food on my table, that's an indicator. So I'm willing to do kind of just about anything in organizational management. Now, I've got a lot under my belt and had some success there. And so I don't do as much. And whenever I do a project, I mean, one of my indicators is that because I'm going to be on location 2 or 3 weeks, I want it to be close to a fishing stream. Okay. I want it to be the government and needs to be, I like to fish. You got to have work-life balance. So make your indicator personal, any indicator of success personal. That's not going to require my everything I have to get this done, potentially, whatever it is. Okay. And so each of us are at different stages in the business cycle. Make them all rewarding. Okay. This has at least, a 25% profit margin. There's a reason I'm in this. I'm not, or maybe I'm looking to springboard on some of these. So I'm willing to take the bid and then use it at a lower price, but then I'm hoping to get more business out of it. Weight them. This is more important than the other part. It's more important that for me that I don't have to get in a plane and travel anymore. I don't like that anymore. So if it's within 3 hours, I could drive, or 4 hours, and I'm going to give it a higher weight. Okay, make them important to you. Always use them consistently. Don't measure one against and then one way and then another one a different way, because then you really don't have a comparative analysis anyway. And so make sure you use the same method for each of those. We have a form, and I also will link to that, that I've designed. It's somewhat corny. You can design your own form, but I'll be glad to share this with anyone who wants to use it. Let me just take this. I'll drop it in the chat box. You send me some results for it, some answers, and I'll run you an indicator success model that we can give you back for it. Okay, it's not so difficult. It sounds all official and everything, but essentially what I do over and over again, I give you a little video about what we're talking about here. But then I just ask you, what is an indicator? What is the number one indicator that you look for when you're reviewing an RFP? Okay, and understanding what that is, it will help us know what you're looking for. And the higher degree of these match you get, the more likely you're going to win. That's the reason why you do it. Okay, and so you take a moment, design your own form, keep those numbers together. I'll give you an example. I'm working with one client. He doesn't mind if I share a little bit of his. Let's see here, but we look at every single bid and we go through, we take it, we break it down. He has his goals, and there we score it, and then we decide if it's a go or no go. And this makes it everything very analytical. And he's happy because he's done, went from basically no business to in 6 months to some $7.2 million in wins. So, and that's not done by accident or luck. Okay. If you think it's luck, you're in the wrong business. It's done by deliberately understanding the RFP, working through it, understanding what you're reading, what you're looking for, getting the right answers back to that government, making sure it's a good match for your company. And he's really happy with that. So that is a goal we have, particularly when I work with clients directly. Whenever you're working with AI, slow down, first of all. Don't just take every answer you get, and understand that there's going to be potentially what's referred to as ghosting. Information that's not quite there. You have to remind your AI tools to do things in a direct way. Don't make up things or don't fabricate, and make sure everything's referenced. So learn some prompts. I'll show you some prompts I've got in just a minute, but choosing the right prompts. I frequently discipline chat, and I use chat GPT. One day I think it's going to grow up and maybe go on leave me, and that's not going to be good. No, I'll kid around. I'll say, I'll play around with it and say, listen, if you don't do it the right this time, I'm gonna move the plot, and go back and forth, have a little fun with it. Life's about is too short to not have a little fun with it. But choose the right prompts, reward it too. I understand. I read an article one time that using words like "thank you" and "please" in chat is actually taking up all this memory that's out there. Is an issue for the folks who have designed these things, and they're all just geniuses by any word measure of word. So it's important, but choose the right prompts and you'll get better results. Is the point there? Always make it pay attention to you. Okay, and that seems so odd. It's kind of new terminology, but I have to frequently remind the tool when I'm working with it to pay attention to what I just asked, that you didn't respond the right way. And in order for you to be able to do that, excuse me, in order for you to be able to do that, you really need to understand the function of an RFP and what you're looking at. Okay, that's why it's so important that you have this foundation. Otherwise, you're dependent, and you don't want to have that happen. And there's no reason for that to happen. Okay, so step back into it. I don't care what happens. If it's an RFP that I'm moving forward with after I've done some of these analytical tools, I'm still going to read the entire RFP. There's no reason why you don't want to do that. It's your business. And so, for goodness sakes, make sure you treat it in a respectful way. Government didn't just create something overnight. It took really, most times they take a year in the making to get that RFP into you, and you have 2 to 3 weeks to respond. But you better use just about every minute of that 2 to 3 weeks to make sure it's the right business for you. So don't be in a rush. Always set aside things, think about things, pull it together, have it ready to go, improve it. I typically go through maybe 12 iterations of a response before I submit it. After I've actually written most of it, I use chat to help with my language, and that's important. But there's still no better method than just sitting down and typing what you think, typing the words as they come out in your business, and then you can use chat, or you can use any of your AI tools to help improve that language. But it should be your language and your methods and your processes, and you'll find that that's going to produce a better response, and also a winning response. The government doesn't want to get the same chat response from every single client who sends the response. Believe me, that's what happens. You'd be surprised, and how that it can work that way. And most of us don't even realize that. Okay. And so when we're starting to, I mean, I see that in sometimes in classes where you get a paperback, it's basically the same thing over and over again. You don't want to have that happen. You want to have original thought in your RFP response. Always sit down, and when you do get your final, review everything with your colleagues and make sure the results. I use the word flavor here, but they're the flavor of your company. They basically speak to what your core values are of your organization. That is, when I read this, I can say, yeah, Mark Knowles did this in his company. They got a brand, they understand. And because you oftentimes you'll be responding to the same governments over and over again. And so know that. But get a flavor that really reflects you as an organization. But always personalize your proposal. And it's important. But one thing I just cannot stand is all these little icons, or these that are placed into these chat responses, but little brains and little flowers, and make it professional. That's the first instruction I give, and I have to routinely do that with the AI products, is keep it professional. No funny graphs, things of this nature. But you'll find that it'll give you a lot of different tools. In fact, I was helping one client just a few minutes ago with I'll show you, like, chat did this for us. With the right instructions, you can come in and you can ask it and prompt it to help you with mapping and developing maps, or developing images, developing organization charts. All so simple that before you might have to go out and contract this with a draftsperson of some sort and spend thousands and thousands of dollars, and I was able to do this in 3 minutes, and essentially just took the instructions that the government gave to us and said, prepare this for me, and it came back with a good result. 20 minutes later, showing it to the government official, they said, this is what we need. And so all we need is just fulfills the check mark and allows it. But it's just an agreed upon map. And so know that you can use it for a lot of different tools, but keep them professional. And with all that said, the thing to remember is, only source of knowledge is experience. That's Albert Einstein's quote. Okay. And being that, you got to have practice. I mean, the first one you do, yeah, it's good. Maybe you'll win. A lot of my clients win the first time. That's important to do. Okay. But you learn from it, and you take that knowledge and you use it over and over again. So what I always do is important. I'm going to kind of walk you through kind of eagle eye processing now, but keeping things organized really, really is very important. And so you know what your limit is. Okay. And because if you do, then that's just the beginning, and then you can expand. Okay, and this is a quote. I really love this quote by Hiccup. I don't know how they got these names in these shows, but Know what your limit. If you know that the sky isn't a limit, then you can just do anything. And so understand that and that process. But you don't know that. You don't know where you stop until you get there. Okay. And so with that process. So in your account, what I like to do is make sure you keep everything organized. So in our one of our services we offer is more advanced. If you come to your RFP account, know that you can add a drive using a Google Drive. Maybe you have your own drive, or you can add, sometimes you're using the Microsoft products. There's other products that are out there that allow you to have an online tool where you can work collaboratively with your team to organize data in a process. In our system here, when you're here in your board, know that when you add your UEI and your cage code, which is done in your settings tab, here, settings, UEI, cage code, then what we do is we link into your DSVS profile. This is the Dynamic Small Business Search System, which is so important. I can't stress the importance of getting this done correctly so that you can be put in front of local and state and federal contracting officers. This is the way someone goes to find someone. Let's just say if I'm looking for somebody to do upholstery in my area and I don't have a $25,000 price point on it, maybe it's 10,000 or 15. We refer to these as micro purchases. I can come in here, I can quick search. It'll show me those companies that provide those services. And I can go in there and I'll say, yeah, I only really want those in Alabama. And then it drills down. So I've got 7 businesses. I can just pick up the phone and do business with these guys. Now, who am I going to do business with? Okay, if I see this list, I'm going to do the business. I'm going to do business with the ones that got everything done right. They got the capability statement here. They've got the information here. They're telling me details about them that are very helpful. I'm going to be able to go into. I'm going to be able to pick up the phone and call them. And so you want to make sure you've got everything here ready to go. I always, when I work with clients, this is the first thing. And said you got to get this right before you do anything else. And this is if you're not familiar with yours, it is an overlay of your SAM registration, the System for Award Management. And you come in here and you sign in and you control it yourself. The Small Business Administration does this, provides this service, but you control it separately from your SAM registration. Okay, but it is built on that. It's an overlay. So you want to make sure you get that done correctly in the process, and also your capability statement, making sure that you've got that built the right way. The capability statement speaks to 6 specific issues. This one here looks really good. It doesn't have to be fancy in any way. It has to give them the information they're seeking. Okay, and so these documents, first, your capability statement, and then second, your DSVS profile, which you can actually download, become valuable tools when you're using an AI product. And so as you're going in and using, for example, what I do is we build these drives, come in and you set yourself up in such a way that your data is organized and you can tap into it using your AI tool. Say, here's my details. Go in and learn information about me. Here are these components. Here are my executive summary. Here are my qualifications documents. Maybe you have multiple qualifications documents, resumes of all your individuals, so forth, forms that you may have to have done, your W-9 form, all these items, so that the tools that you use can learn about your company in an efficient way. And you continue to add to that over time, and that makes sure the tools themselves get a little smarter in how it reviews you as a company, so they can tell more information about you and your performance, your references, all those details. And so keeping things organized, and I have this in ABCDEF kind of way, 6 different areas where information can be used by your products that are there. Now, at GovDirections, we actually have, which GovDirections is our primary brand, we have a service that you can actually come in. Now, I just share with you, you do have a login for this use, but you can use your own, tools that you have, ChatGPT product. We have in ChatGPT, for example, we have a specific GPT just for writing. I'll show that to you, but also in Claude and others. But here we have for you ways to work with the RFP itself. We go through a process of uploading that capability statement I just showed you in your DSVS profile, defining those indicators of success, then adding your RFP, the request for proposal. So you're using AI, but you've slowed it down a little bit. You haven't just dumped in an RFP and say, write me a response. You say, hey, let's get to know each other. Here's all the details about me. This is really what I'm looking for. Okay. And then move toward we'll find a match separate next, as opposed to some of the systems that are out there, and everybody has their own way of doing things. But a lot of them come in and say, you sign up and here's 90% match. How do they know that? They don't know anything about you. Okay, you got to train the systems. What they're telling is everybody's got 90% match. Okay, don't fall for that. Understand you got to slow down a little bit and get to know the system, let it get to know you, and build requirements on how you're going approach that. Introduce your company, define your goals before you ever move to an actual RFP analysis. When you do get that done, then you come in and start building some analysis and a plan to win those. And so here we have for you a variety of prompts too. For example, how do you introduce your company? Going in, and the prompts themselves are built in such a way that you can ingest information about your company and your business identity, things that you want the government to know about you so that they can potentially use that to your advantage, or so forth. So it's all there for you. We actually provide it. All you have to do is have a username and password. It's not, we don't charge for this at GovDirections. In your user, if you're primarily with a RFP delivery product, your username and password does work here at no additional cost. This is our first flagship service, and so your username and password works in both sides of the system there. Okay, so understanding these prompts, knowing which ones that really work for you, and we have organized them in a flow that allows you to do that. How to get ready, and you'll see that we spend almost 50% of the time having the system, any system, get to know us, okay, and get to know you before you actually start breaking that down, verifying, at the end, actually making sure everything's accurate, making sure you don't have any unsupported details that are potentially problems or flags that really kind of send your proposal off to that pile of non-responsiveness. You don't want to be there. Okay, so here we are at the 50-minute market. I promised that we would be within about 45 to 50 minutes. And I want to thank you for joining us today, especially those who came to us on our YouTube live. And if you come later on YouTube, make sure I always point down and say you can subscribe. That helps us do these type presentations at no charge for you, and we like to do that to really kind of to help our clients learn a little bit more. And I'll leave you with this final quote, and that is, that one we just shared just a minute there. Understand where your limits are. Know that the sky itself isn't the limit. That you can do anything. Okay. Know where you start at so that you can keep growing and get better, because it really is just the beginning. And you can quickly go from 0 wins to, I would find here in 5 months, some $7.8 million in wins, and multiple wins. And so it was all through an established method to make that happen. It's just not by luck. And I want to thank you with that. So I'm going to stop the recording on YouTube Live here and give everybody an opportunity in their meeting room here to ask any questions if you have any questions.